welcome to the video on the environmental characteristics of New Zealand's fisheries. This will be a little bit of a walk through the habitats that you'll find in the exclusive economic zone of New Zealand. And you'll learn a lot about this in the ecology class, but New Zealand's exclusive economic zone is very big. It's the fourth or fifth largest in the world, depending on how it's measured. 1.3 million square nautical miles, which is 15 times larger than the New Zealand landmass. And the deepest is the Kermadec Trench. It goes all the way from the near shore 0 meters all the way to the second deepest area in the world in the ocean. And that's that blue area up near the Kermadecs, that deep trench that you see. We also have lots and lots of different bodies of water moving through the exclusive economic zone. You get the East Auckland Current coming down, which sometimes brings tropical visitors. We'll find butterfly fish and the like living here in the north sometimes, but they'll have been carried down by as larval fish, but then won't reproduce here. But you'll sometimes see tropical fish. And if you look down at the south part, we've got very, very cold water moving up from the Antarctic region. And you get the subtropical convergence where they meet over the Chatham Rise. Makes it a very productive area. Tasman currents. We have upwelling zones. You'll learn a lot more about that in ecology, so we won't spend a lot of time on it. But realize that there are massive differences in habitat and water temperature within the exclusive economic zone, which means that we have very rich differences in fisheries and production. So let's have a look at the main commercial fishing ground. All right, so the continental shelf is approximately 130 meters deep and extends from 2 to 30 nautical miles offshore. All right, 6% of the exclusive economic zone is less than 200 meters deep. That's the area that we're familiar with. That's the area that we can dive. Well, we won't dive to 200 meters, but we'll dive in. We're talking about the close inshore area. This is the area that recreational people fish most of the time, and near shore. 22%, you're looking at a ratfish, rattail, and this is the typical bottom that you'll find in the 200 to 1,000 meter depth. And this contains most of the resources. So what you'll see a lot of benthic creatures living in the sediment. It's most all soft sediment. You can see the little holes and tracks that they've made as they plow through it. A couple of things on top and a ratfish. And so this is the area that tends to be trawled by deep water trawls for hoki, especially hake, ling, this kind of thing. And this is where most of New Zealand's tonnage of fish comes from. So that, if you look to the right at the New Zealand exclusive economic zone illustration, you're looking at all the very white areas, especially the Chatham Rise, the Campbell Plateau, Challenger Plateau, and in between the North and South Island. 72% of the most of it, almost 3/4, is outside the 1,000 meter contour. So you get surface pelagics like tuna and things like tuna mostly, and sharks, and then you also have a small on the margin fishery for orange roughy, deep water Oreos, but for the most part, anything over 1,200 meters is not fished. So most of what is our exclusive economic zone is too deep to trawl to catch any bottom fish, because the floats that they use just implode when they get that deep. Here we have a picture of benthic protection areas that have been established in New Zealand. These are closed to trawling, and this is an industry-led closure. So they've closed off something like 30% of the exclusive economic zone. Now, if you look at the picture to the right, you'll see that most of what they voluntarily said they won't trawl is too deep to trawl anyway. And so, hey, we'll take it, but yeah, it's not really much of a concession by the commercial fishing industry. They said, all right, we need to be seen to be doing something to assuage people who are annoyed with bottom trawling, and would seem to need to be seen to be green. So we'll voluntarily close 30% of the exclusive economic zone. Now, the Kermadec region was already close to them, but they included that in their 30%, and everything else is not where fish are caught for the most part. So we'll look at productivity, because when you're talking about the characteristics of a zone, you want to know what makes it a productive area for fisheries anyway. What's going to produce a lot of fish? Generally, this is like an overarching principle. This is one of the big picture principles that you need to know as a marine scientist. Generally, high seas, open oceans areas have little nutrients and little fish life. What you'll find is migratory schools widely ranging, looking for scarce resources. Some things like these tuna. And the reason there aren't very many nutrients is because most of them will sink out. If they're attached to particles, will sink out of the zone as living organisms that have used them die and sink. Now, if you look to the picture at the right, that might be what you might see in a typical inshore zone. The water is green, and that is because there are a lot of nutrients washing off the shore. Those allow the phytoplankton to grow, and that's what you're looking through. You're looking through green cells in the water. That's little tiny plant cells that are growing in the water and turning the water green. So that's what you'll find inshore, and there's a continuous resupply of those nutrients to the inshore water. So offshore and deep water fisheries are dependent on demersal species. So those are demersal species are ones associated with the bottom, and you often find squid concentrated in upwelling zones. So there's a big squid fishery in New Zealand. So if you want to test yourself, you can look at these 5 questions and try to explain the answers, and that will give you a good start for the exam. Thank you.